So we are minutes away from the mega LIC listing. SC Garg is former finance secretary. He's joining us right now to discuss this. Sanjeev Pujari of Consulting Actuary is with us as well. Naveen Kulkarni is Chief Investment Officer at Axis Securities, who joins in as well. Gentlemen, great to have all of you here. It's a big day with the LIC issue being a quoted price now. I mean, who would have thought 6 months back or even a year back that this is going to happen? And it's happened pretty smoothly. Naveen, we're getting rates now. So, I mean, I think the focus obviously on the first day is on the price, right? So 872 is where it's listed in the sort of settled in the pre-open. For those watching who've gotten allotment, what should their move be? Should they do anything? Sit tight? What's your advice?
Yes, listing at a discount to the price, I think to some extent it was expected, considering the markets have come down from the level when the LIC IPO was talked about a couple of months back, right? So market is down significantly. The pressure in the equity markets has been there. So that, of course, has had an impact on the listing, no doubt about that. So at these levels, I would suggest that hold on to the stock. I don't think so. We need to book losses in this stock, definitely. So there's great value in the stock. So I would say that hold on to the stock at this point in time.
Okay, so despite the tepid opening, the LIC has settled now at 872. Naveen Kulkarni says that the best idea would be to perhaps hold on to the stock if you hold it. Sanjeev Pujari of Consulting Actuary is also with us. Sanjeev, let's talk about the business, right? Due to legacy reasons, LIC traditionally has largely sold just one product, which is the par policies as we call it. It never earlier looked at profitability of products in terms of the VNB margins, and hence the margins are lower than in the private peers. How long do you think it could take before they, get up to speed? And how does that tie in with the listing price itself?
Good morning to all of you. Regarding LIC's margin, if you look at the margins, what was disclosed as on September, figures in the DRSP, it's 12.3. It's not really far off from the private company's margin when they listed, say around 3, 4, 5 years back. It's not very different. But again, a point here that I want to stress is that it's not that LIC was not doing non-par business. It was doing. I mean, if you look at last year's business, almost 65 to 70% of the business is non-par. The difference is that the non-par was sitting within the par business. Now that they have, bifurcated the fund into par and non-par, the shareholders' profit in the non-par business goes to the shareholders to the extent of 100%. That is the difference. But again, they were doing typically one kind of business, which was the retirement fund business. So it was a fund management business. One would say that it was not insurance business. So in a way, possibly they were not doing the right kind of non-par business, or to put it differently, they were doing too much of one kind of business. What they need to do basically to be on the same level as the private companies to diversify. So you have unit-linked business, you have protection business, you have health business, you have non-par saving business. But again, when they are written in a non-par fund, obviously the margins would improve because they are getting 100%, the full profit out of that. And that is one way of improving the margins. Now, LIC's ability to do so, obviously, legacy reasons, yes. So you don't expect LIC to, hit the ground running. I won't expect that. But again, if the will is there and the positive factors, if you see the policyholders' trust, the brand name, and the financial muscle it has in the market today, I think the three things can, over a period of time, when I say over a period of time, it could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, change the business model under the new structure to take the margins where LIC would want it to be.
Okay, Mr. Garg, in terms of how the organization will be run, I mean, there'll be a huge spotlight on all activities of LIC now. For the longest time, it was seen as, a large vehicle for the government to engineer rescue acts, right? Without kind of going into specific details. Will all of that change? Because, investors would want this to be run as a sort of absolutely professional company without any of that. Because this is shareholder money. Your thoughts, Mr. Garg?
So the LIC has been sort of coming to the rescue of the government, both for subscribing to the borrowings of the state governments as well as the central government, and also bailing out the issues from time to time. Now with some share, only about 3.5% going into the public hands, I don't expect this to materially change going forward. Of course, the public scrutiny listing will bring some effect on the way the board and the investment committee of the LIC functions. But to expect that there would be a total departure and the fund management would be now a very professional management, and the LIC will not invest in the government bonds as well as invest in the government's IPOs, etc., might be a little too much to expect.
Okay, got that. Let's get back to tracking the earnings then, because, all right, there you have it. Just in seconds from now, you will have the LIC listing listed at 882, which is a 7% discount to its issue price. So slightly disappointing, the listing, you'd have to say, no two ways about that. But this is India's largest insurance company and has garnered more than 20,000 crores for the government of India. So this is a momentous day, really. 889 is where LIC is settling now, about 6% lower. Okay, now 865 is the listing price, but 893.
So now it's cutting its losses. So 5.5% lower is what you have. 897 now. So the first dip has been bought. Let's put it that way.
Okay, the first dip has been bought. Muted, you'd have to say, in terms of a listing,
it's so. I mean, it's synonymous with insurance, right? Anand, you said in the morning, LIC liya kya? I mean, and I can give you an instance. I was out for 2 days. I was down in Kerala for a family function, and family members were asked. There was intense, heated debate about, in which quota will you get allotment? People had applied with policyholder quota and retail shareholder quota. I mean, so there are a lot of interest around this one in terms of such a well-known, of course, a brand synonymous with insurance in India, really the leader. And now, of course, it's part of the public markets as well. And now, of course, the journey for investors really begins. Policyholders, of course, have known it as an entity which has kind of serviced them for decades. Now, of course, it's in the public sphere in terms of investor interest and attention.
Now, if you're a policy holder, you are in the green.
You're in the green, yes.
So now 913 is what you have on the stock.
And the dips are getting bought at this point in time.
Yeah, but again, just to reiterate the point I made in the morning as well, this is not a day trader's game. This is not about a day. This is about the long term, a 10-year story or not. That's the big debate, whether it's a 10-year story or not. Insurance has been a bit of a compounder. The last 1 year has been tough for insurance as a space. Before that, you saw the big move, but it will be interesting to see what happens here.
Also, how the management changes the approach and starts to sell high-margin, non-par saving policies is the big question, right? And gets up to speed with the private players. I think that is what a lot of analysts are debating as well.
And look at the volume: 1.3 crore shares on LIC, and that means about 1,200 crores of volumes. I think this would be the biggest ever. Keep in mind, and it listed at 865, and that's where the volumes picked up, but I think there would be some volatility. This is the largest IPO, and of course, it will have its own ramifications. 1.4 crore shares almost traded on that. I think we are in for some kind of record in terms of volumes in secondary market today.
Okay, it's a historic day, no two ways about that. The largest IPO, the largest insurance company, and such big money that has come through to the government of India, right? Over 20,000 crores. So it's a big day for all stakeholders of LIC. But let's get back to discussing the business, because Sanjeev Pujari was making a comment earlier about how the VNB margins, it could take some time for LIC to get up to speed with its private peers. Naveen Kulkarni, same question to you. Do you think LIC can achieve that VNB margin target of being at par with the private peers anytime in the next couple of years?
So, if you actually see compared to, let's say, 10 years back, how let's say PSU companies used to perform and what they are today, I would say that many PSU companies have become much more efficient than what they were, right? So if you look at SBI Life, they are like very efficient companies. So it might take a little more time for LIC to catch up to the private peers, but that's a big opportunity, right? It's available at a significant discount. The value for new business can grow at a reasonably strong pace, right? So those are the big opportunities that LIC has. And of course, listing does make a difference, right? Because you are scrutinized on a quarterly basis. You have to give out presentation in terms of how the business is moving. So I think there will be far greater emphasis on how the business is going to grow and whether shareholders are going to create more value or not. And important factor here will be that government will have to divest more shares in the future, right? So there has to be, I would say, that shareholder value creation. That's when I think there will be more money that the government will be able to raise. So broadly speaking, it looks very interesting to us. How it pans out remains to be seen.
Naveen, in terms of non-par premium growth, what kind of numbers should one factor in reasonably? Should one be aggressive? What would you factor in? What have you penciled in really?
So, to be very honest, we haven't modeled that because it takes a little time to figure this part out. But I would say that we will be a little conservative in modeling that, considering that there is a large machinery which works primarily towards the par products. They do have a non-par portfolio, not that they don't have a non-par portfolio, but I would say that it will take a little more time for that business to become more sizable. But considering the emphasis that the management will have now, I think there is a chance that it might grow faster. But from a perspective of modeling, I will still be conservative at this point in time.
Okay, some quick numbers then, Sanjeev, since you've tracked this space very closely, on the embedded value front, at what pace do you expect LIC's embedded value to increase and what could be the triggers over the next 1 year?
I think there are two factors which impact the EV in the end is what volume of new business you do, and secondly, obviously, with that volume, what kind of mix you get in terms of the profitability of the overall mix of new business. So, I mean, if you look at the LIC's track record, the growth over the last 5 years has been lower than the rate at which the private companies have grown. Now, whether that will change looking at the overall size of LIC, that's a big question. But again, even if they grow at say 5 to 7%, the rate at which they have grown over the last 5 years, but again they are able to improve the margin. That would improve the EV going forward in the next 3 to 5 years. But again, if I would say that if the EV could grow at around 12 to 15% against the private company's EV growth of around 18 to 20%, I think that will be a big achievement for LIC.
All right, Mr. Garg, Sanjeev Pujari and Naveen Kulkarni, thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand the biggest, India's largest IPO that has hit the bosses today. LIC has finally listed. So it's a momentous day on the Lal Street, no two ways about that. The market is taking it well. The Nifty is up about 0.5%.